All right, outliers. Today you're going to listen to a conversation between me and John Nieuwenburg. John is 72. He works 3.5 days a week. And when I asked him what he wanted next, he told me nothing. So why don't you watch two things? First, what would you actually do if you reach every goal you are chasing right now? Sit in that. Don't answer that one too fast. And then two, where does your motivation really come from? And would you have the courage to slow down and enjoy what you've built in when you've accomplished it? All right, let's get into it.
But here's my place in life. I'm 72,
Nice, really nicely done.
and I do this because golfing 5 days a week is boring. And so I work about 3.5 days a week, and because I like the work, the cash is nice, but I don't have any other aspirations than that. I might do this for 10 more years on a scale that might slide from 3.5 days. I currently work with about 25 to 30 clients a week on a recurring basis. I don't want any more clients. That's all I can handle. And in 10 years, it might be 5 clients or 10 clients. So managing that is really the only thing that's on my mind. And that depends as much as anything on health, state of mind, health, and yeah, basically the health is really the biggest risk that I have to all of this. And so that's my station in life these days. I'm a pretty happy guy, and not coasting. That'd be a little bit, that's kind of a pejorative term, but I'm happy where I'm at and happy to just let it ride into the sunset in some fashion. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. All right. It was really interesting because I got your responses and I get responses from different people on there. And so I read it and I like, truthfully, I looked at it, I was like, oh, there's nothing here. He doesn't want it. Did he read this? I don't know how this is going to go. And then like I thought back to spent some more time going in the world, like thought back actually to your TED talk. Then that's now like over 10 years ago now, right? But like I'm getting a little teary eye thinking about it. But I'm like, in rereading it with the TED talk, like as a bit of a frame, I'm like, what an accomplishment. Sorry, it's
Mm,
it's, it's getting me, you know?
sure.
What an accomplishment to get to the place where you're like, I'm good,
Yeah.
like that which I have created around me. I did not expect this to make me feel in the way that I'm feeling. So kudos to you with just a couple of short sentences. But
Well,
like,
in 2011, in May, as you know, I attempted suicide. I was just about bankrupt at that time and thought, that's it. There's no point in carrying on. And my attempt failed. And so it took 2, 3 years to kind of get back on my feet and get established again. Um, Today, I'm in, well, I do about 650, 700,000 a year in 3.5 days, and comfortably built up a nest egg and net worth. And so yeah, that's basically my accomplishment in the last 15 years is that, first of all, get back on my feet and then get to a place where, I'm pretty happy. As I often say, I'm rich but not wealthy. I have
yeah,
lots
well,
of cash flow, but I'm not really in a place where I could just say, well, let me hang it up and call it a day, or at least not at the level of lifestyle that I care to have.
yeah, I get that. There also seem to be, and John, like for me, let's do this. I'm just gonna have a conversation with you. I think I am gonna ask one framing question here, just so we have something in. I just don't want the conversation to slip into something nice here. But for me, the experience is already on, right? We're already whatever we're doing, we're already in co-creation, right? And what's fun for
Okay.
you and talking to you is that like it doesn't have to be linear or like I'm going after this thing here. I like even as you're talking, I think to myself, um, you're someone who's had multiple chapters. You've spoken on multiple stages, even that distinction of being rich versus wealthy. Like you have the distinctions. You're in a place where you're in your early 70s and like still working like like good amount of the time with a good group of clients, you know? It wasn't like and so I'm like, you're sharp, you're on your thing, you're in alignment with where things are. So like when I look at that, I'm like, okay, that actually to me opens up even more space from a
Sure.
place where it's like we don't have to go solve a problem. You
Yeah.
know, like oh that actually makes me feel a lot better. Like and instead we can explore or grow from there. What's coming for you?
That's fine. I'm happy to talk and both about my life experience and observations about that, and happy to talk about some of the patterns that I see in the people that I work with, and some of that might be helpful for people listening who fit the protocol or fit the pattern that I often see in business owners, and so I'm happy to talk about that all day.
I'm like, I know you would be, but I'd actually love to go in a different place, which is actually just like
Okay.
the state of being happy right now, right?
Hmm.
Um, and what I mean by this is that like, so I'm turning 40 in a month to the day, right?
Oh,
And what is starting to dawn on me, and I like is I'm like, oh wow, like I don't know how many more like decades. I like now I'm thinking about things in terms of decades instead of like days and
sure.
months and such, right? And I'm like, I don't know how many more decades I have for the business to be this, to this, to that, there. You know, I have young kids, they're 3 and 5 right now. And I'm like, oh, like when I'm 65, like they're gonna be this age. And so like I'm starting to think in those kind of terms.
Right.
And there's something about that coupled with business that I think is really interesting, right? Which is
Yeah.
like the space of like what's interesting for you is that like when I talk to you is that like you're not coasting at all, right? You're thriving, but there's still a striving element to it, you know?
Yeah.
And to me, there's almost something in there that start to like play on the question of like, what's the point of the business? What's the point of be like of entrepreneurship and all this stuff here?
I've
If at
got a
some
very
point you can't
good.
get to where you're at.
So, my serious and but rhetorical question is, what's the purpose of a small business?
Mm,
The answer I'm about to give you is a bit counterintuitive, and it wouldn't be the answer you'd give your customers or your team members or your investors. But the purpose of a business, a small business, I don't mean $100 million on the, you know, Dow Jones or anything like that. I'm talking about the kinds of businesses that are doing one, two, three, four, $5 million. The purpose of that business is to give its owner the life they want.
mm,
That's the purpose of business. And what happens in real life is most business owners get so wrapped around the axle of their business that business kind of takes over their life, and they're not getting. None of us were born to business, we were born to live. And so, to your point, you have to be, first of all, clear, what do I want my life to look like? In as much detail as you care to work through. And then the question that follows that is, what would have to be true about the business so you could live that life? And that's the order of operations. That's the way I would say, in answer to your question, what are you striving to get out of life? And then how do you design a business? So that's what it's designed to do.
yeah, there's something in what you're saying here where I see like um there's like you're taking the vision, seeing what it is that you want it to look like at the end, and then I'll just use my own language around this here, but being like, all right, well, what is it going to take to make this true? You
Yes.
know, and like I often talk to people about like, all right, let's go write the resume that you want to be able to give in 2 years, and just like then go do the work to make all those
Yes.
bullets something you could actually stand behind.
So you said you referenced in some way being happy, and so my answer to that is I'm happy because my business is giving me the life I want. To
Mm.
go full circle to what you said, I'm living the way. As I said, I tried golfing 5 days a week, and that gets boring. So it's you have to have some kind of intellectual challenge or stimulation or something that gives you satisfaction or meaning in life, and so I get a lot of that out of coaching. And so it makes it satisfying in its own sake. And at the same time, it gives me the life I want.
Yeah, there's there's something that's coming to me. I'll try and figure out like the way I want to frame it in a little bit. Um, but there's something in this space of I'm imagining right now like working to rebuild, right? Because you were talking about like in 2011, 20 to 2015, like you're like in rebuilding mode, right? And so it's interesting. Like it's not just interesting, it's really fascinating and enjoyable to like meet you in a place where you're like, look, I set out to build this business to help me live a life that I want, and it's doing it. And so like
Mm.
we're good. You know,
Yes,
like we're
exactly.
that's generally what I feel like I'm here. Like we're good. And I want to
Yeah,
keep this going. And
yeah,
the life that I want might change over time. And so I might change the number of hours or the number of clients I'm taking on. But like this is where it sits. So far so
yeah,
good.
yeah. And one aspect of that is from 2015 through to about the start of 2018, I was in recovery mode. And then I caught a vision, and the power of that vision, which it only has meaning to me. But I spent a day working. My brother has a home in Phoenix, beautiful home. He's a well-to-do guy, and I spent a day working in his backyard. And my view could have been a hotel resort. That's how posh this home is. Tennis court, um, swimming pool, barbecue area. And what I said to myself is, I want a piece of this. This looks very attractive. How do I get some of this for myself? And that spurred the next phase of the growth. That simple question for myself, and in it, I realized the power of what Viktor Frankl had to say in Man's Search for Meaning, is that you have to know what your why is. He writes in the book about his experience in Auschwitz, and on any given day, he said you could tell who was going to die. And what was interesting or odd about it is healthy people died, sick people lived. What was going on? And what he came to recognize is those people that had a why would find a way to thrive or survive, at least in the worst of circumstances. But if you didn't know a why or have a why, what's the point? I'll just give up. And what the why is not that important. It's only important that it matters to you. And so in Auschwitz, that might mean I want to smell green grass. I want to get back to my village. I want to see my spouse. And for me, it was that moment. And that's what drove me basically increasing my business by a factor of 3 from 2018 through to and so my why is kind of simple. It's not that inspiring, except that the idea that if you don't have a why, you won't do what it takes, because what it takes often means doing things that are uncomfortable or push you to the edge or take courage to do. And what's the definition of courage? It's the judgment that despite the fear, something else is more important. So, I passed that along as a thought that I stumbled into my why. But if you don't have one, you won't do what it takes to accomplish anything in life that's meaningful.
So there's two things. There are a couple of different things that are coming to me when you say this here, and I want to see what we create from this. So one of them is uh, the why, and what was the component of it that really struck me was two things. All right, so I don't know if your brother's older or younger. I don't know anything about your brother, but I'm thinking about my brother. He's a little younger than me, and in my mind, I'm like, I have a feeling that like there's something. Well, actually, it's actually playing out right now. He's been on a weight loss journey, and I
Mm,
just saw every time I see him, I'm just like, we're losing another 10, 15 pounds. Not because it would be healthy for me, but I also get to see him. I'm like, we grew up in the same house. Like I know what you're made of. I put some of that in there, you know? So like if that's the case, if you're getting it, then like, and I could see it. I'm like, we look pretty similar, you know? And so there's something that's come to me when you really talk about the vision from that perspective. Not just the sibling elements of it all, but sometimes just like being exposed to something that can feel more real or tangible right? It's like the fact that he's doing it, I'll use my brother, the fact that he's doing it, I'm like, oh, this is doable. It's not like I can't say it's my genes. I can't say this, that, and the other. It's like it's possible. I'm just not doing what it takes to make it possible yet. And
Sure.
do I want to
Yeah.
change what I'm doing in order to make that possible? Let me get your thoughts on that, John, before I move on.
Um, Walter Isaacson is a author and wrote biographies on Steve Jobs and I think Elon and some other people. And he was recently asked in an interview, what do all of those people have in common? And after he thought about it for a minute, his answer was insatiable curiosity. And I think that's a compelling trait to develop. Just be curious, follow your curiosity, chase your curiosity. And one of the things that I've found recently is AI has helped grow my curiosity because anytime I'm curious about something now, I got a device in my hand, and I can ask a few questions, and suddenly I'm a little smarter about something. Whereas before, you would just kind of, well, not that important. Why are they replacing the brick? I was in Arizona, and they pulled off all of the roof bricks, and just a certain section of a house, and was like, what's going on there? And I learned a whole lot about how how roofs are protected in Arizona. It's just an example that comes to mind of curiosity being a driving force. Your point with your brother is that you're now curious because he's doing something and you're wondering, hey, how come he's doing it? And I should, maybe. That's how I would think of it as curiosity in action.
I think it's really important. It's one of the reasons why I over time I keep coming back to a podcast as the conversational vehicle, because more than anything else, I'm trying to, I told you earlier, like demonstrate, like I feel like a lot of times I get out in the world and I get a polished version of the unpolished version of people, if that makes sense. They're like, I went through
Yeah.
something really bad and I know how to tell this story in a way that comes off, And I'm like,
Mm.
but I'm going through something bad right now, and it doesn't sound like that. It doesn't sound like the polished version or whatever it is. And so I had a friend who, as we're talking, it's really making me think about both the curiosity, but underneath it, it's like, what changes once you know that it might be possible, or whatever that inner feeling is. I'll be curious what you think about it. Like, I'm thinking about my friend who was really, really ambitious. We went to school together, top notch school. Ended up going in for natural resources, did great work in there. But he was telling me he ended up restarting his career and getting into finance later. All right.
Mm.
And he was telling me, it's because where I grew up, the person that I respected the most, the person who seemed like he was doing like the best out there, he was involved in something that where a natural resource degree would make total sense to go do.
Sure.
Then we got to school and I met all these people about in business and finance. I'm like, there's a whole new world of possibility out there, you know? And
Mm.
it felt like, and he's like, I was already committed. So like I had to go through my process and he started all over again. I'd say that now. I'm like, we're like right after college, started all over again. And he's high flying. He's doing really well in the field of finance. And there's
Mm.
something as you're talking about this that what keeps itching at me is like, it's not like we know that it's possible, but there's something that might shift that like when it really starts to feel like, wait a minute, this could be mine. What do you think? What do you think
Mm.
about that? Let me know how true that feels to you. I'm playing this out in real time.
Sometimes I'm asked how long you've been a coach, and I have two answers. They're both true. So I've been professionally as a coach since 2004. But the other answer is all my life. And this circles back to your question. It was Steve Jobs who said you can only connect the dots going backwards. And I started coaching about 5, 6 months into it. I woke up epiphany. Oh my gosh, I've always been a coach and I connected some dots. So I'm the eldest, back to your question, I'm the eldest of 8 children. So think about how you're cast in life when you're the eldest of 8. I'm hardwired to be a teacher, and I knew that in high school. But in those days, that meant wearing a Harris tweed coat with, elbow patches and a bureaucratic style. of teaching didn't appeal to me very much. In the early 80s, I learned something called the Socratic method of leadership. So Socrates had it, the best way to help somebody is to help them figure it out for themselves. And that's what a coach does. And so when you think about career, somehow you think of it as some kind of linear, perfectly, you know, geography perfect kind of graph of developing your career. And that isn't my experience at all. I stumbled into a few things. I knew the underpinning of it all was that I was wired to be a teacher in the Socratic method, but it was only when I became a coach that I recognized, oh, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I'm good at.
If you're a leader with a track record of success and there's a vision you're ready to bring to life that feels outrageous right now, I have an invitation for you. Outlier's Edge is a world for different-minded, like-hearted leaders who are owning what makes them different to make a world of difference. And at the center of that world is a weekly coaching room where we bring the visions that just won't leave us alone. We get coached, stay accountable, and build alongside others, creating something different. If you're pursuing something that's too big, too early, or too improbable for most rooms, this is your room. Go to outliersedge.com/world and come in as my guest. All right. So there's a couple of things that are playing out for me as we go through this conversation. The two of them, I want to come back to, like, it wasn't until you became a coach that you realized that it was for you. I'm going to come back to that in a bit. But there's something else I want to just call in, which is you talked about 2018. We're recording this conversation in 2016. So in the last 8 years, you 3x your business, right?
Yeah.
And then you'd also mentioned that you're like in your early 70s now. So I'm somewhere in my mind, I'm like, so around like age 65, you're like, you know what, this thing that I've been building, like, what if we just did 3 times better than this in less than a decade? Like, what if we just went with that? Like, let me just make sure I'm catching that right there, because there is something in there that I think is, I don't know, I'm getting excited by it.
You know, it wasn't that I woke up one day and said, I wanted 3X. I woke up one day and said, this is what I want. And that was that experience of
Yes.
getting a piece of Arizona. And that caused me to then say, well, what has to be true to make that happen? And then I did the things that then flowed from that. Without it, I wouldn't have challenged myself or, had the courage or even would have considered doing it. I was comfortable at the time, but I wanted comfortable plus 3X for
Yeah.
a very specific reason.
All right.
So
keep going.
it didn't come as a result of wanting money for its own sake. It was, I wanted that money to serve a purpose that I had in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for bringing us back to that. Thank you. Thank you. These, it's cool. It's cool talking. There's something that was playing out while you were saying this, and it came to me, and it'll come back. It's actually showed up twice in the back of my mind, and so I have to start writing things down. But we'll let it go. I'll come back to this in a little bit. Oh, it was around this. You talked about, like, the courage, challenge, and you said comfort. Right, those 3 words here, and I'm listening to, like, different C's. Your W5, I know, like, and those are like the who, what, why.
Sure.
Yeah.
Who, what, why, when, where.
Yes.
Who, what, when, where, and why.
Yes. And now you have me thinking about, like, an alliteration here with all these C's here. And I'm like, courage. Yes. Challenge. Yes. Comfort. Like, all of a sudden, like, that broke through. Yeah.
Well, comfort is the counterpoint, right? I was comfortable, and why would you change if you're comfortable until something inspired a reason that was big enough to get uncomfortable? Or, the definition of courage I like best is courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the judgment that something else is more important. That's what courage is. So the fear will exist. It's just, what are you prepared to do about it? Well, I'm prepared to do what it takes, overcome the fear. Otherwise, you stay comfortable, which might be, well, gee, I really don't want to challenge myself. That might be the opposite of saying I'm comfortable.
So there's 2 things coming. One of them feels like I just need to say it. It's like, I have a sense that I might be talking to you in a year or two's time, and something has come into your place that has spurred your curiosity, and you'd be like, "Hey, Niiamah, you remember back in the day, last time we talked, I'm like, hey, look, I'm happy and we're good. Well, now there's a bigger there's a bigger vision here that's making me want to go out and do something different in that way. So,
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure that could happen. Um, you know, the thing that's hard about getting a vision is to try to do it in a premeditated way so that it
mm,
has meaning and impact. I've never really been able to do that, write a vision board or some kind of statement of a future state. But I stumble into them and I find those are the ones that are the most compelling. Those are the ones that I've actually acted on.
there's something out there's some element here in talking to you, John, is like I like counterintuitive conversations, things that throw like conventional wisdom out the window, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
um and what's really lovely about some of what you're saying is like have a vision, but like you may not like just construct a vision, be on the lookout, be open to a vision coming, and when it comes, you better recognize what it is and go for it.
Well, that's the other part of why curiosity matters,
Mm,
because you can stumble into your vision as long as you keep being curious, because you'll keep exploring or looking or turning the rocks over. Hey, there's a woman named Wes Kao, Kao. She's executive coach, works in the SaaS space in San Francisco, and she's a wonderful writer. And one of the things she talks about is that you ought to have a spiky point of view. And you just described it, counterintuitive, something that others may not agree with, but what you're willing to make a stand about. And that's a couple of mine.
yeah, this is something where because I my whole day it's just oriented toward the outlier, and it's because I myself feel like I am one, right? Someone
And,
who's in rooms that I'm not supposed to be, talking to people that I'm not supposed to talk to, all those things, and now that's become my general way of being. Like if I'm in the room that like if I look around and everyone's like me, we're in the same level of success, we've done the same things, I'm like I'm in the wrong room. This is
yeah,
totally not it, and
yeah.
so part of what keeps the game going is that counterintuitiveness. But then what I've also found is, let's use the word spiky in this case here, is like it's actually come down to a lot of me being willing and courageous enough to just be me. It's almost like a
Mm,
new spiky idea. Like if you knew what I was really thinking, you would realize that I'm full of thorns, and it's like I don't have to go out to go create something new. It's just already here. I see you want to say something. Bring it in, John.
Well, one of the blessings of having as much gray hair as I do is I don't really care as much about what others think. I'm
Mm.
prepared to live and pretty confident about what I hold to be true, and that for me it's true, and less concerned about if someone else disagrees with it. Of course, if you want to disagree, I'm okay with that, no problem. And so I'm more willing to express spiky points of view and to be contradicted and be okay with that.
What would you say right now if you had to put out here like what your spikiest point of view is right now? And it is like what would be? And it may be either one that you haven't brought out to other people, or one that like you're like whenever I bring this up, people just like go up in arms over.
Well, the one that I would start with is what's the purpose of the business? So we've talked about that one. But the spiky point of view that I have with business owners who are potentially prospects is this thought: if the owner wants a better business, the business needs a better owner.
Mm.
And what does that mean? So lots of times business owners are saying, I need the business to be better. And what I've come to know to be true, and here's the spiky part: all business coaching is personal coaching in disguise. Because what holds a business owner back is more often to do with mindset, their lens with which they view the world, how they see themselves, and skills around leadership, communication, delegation. These are areas that, um, for the most part, many of the things that are holding back a business owner would become better if they were better at those kinds of things: skills, leadership, mindset. So all
That's really
business
interesting.
coaching is personal coaching in disguise, and often we're talking about unpacking things through the lens of, why do you think about it that way? What would have to be true um, so that you could actually have the thing that you're complaining to me about? What would you have to change to make that happen?
There's I'm smiling right now, and that I love this element of what would need to be true. What would you need to change, John? What I don't want to say right now is that um, for a few years I had gone down the lines of being like, I'm doing business coaching, right? It was more leadership coaching, like being an outlier out in the world, and then I actually think it had something to do with my daughter being born right around that time. I'm like really practical, like let's just do business, right? And you're catching me at a time right now, which is why like the podcast itself has shifted. I'm bringing people in and I'm like, hey, look, let's bring a vision out in the world and let's explore and let's bring a place where we can be intense and things around it. Because I'm recognizing that like as I have a background in economics, and like as much as we can get into the math of it all, which is important, right? If we're not getting into the person here and how they're showing up in the world, how they're showing up as a leader inside of their business and such, then we're still capped. So while you were saying that, I was also just taking that back in for myself and just letting that sit within me a bit here, just to be like,
Yeah.
hey, by the way, like it doesn't matter what you call it, but like the work is how do you stand up, show up, and continue to build yourself and grow toward the goals that you want to be bringing out to life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so, um, just to kind of, um, one of the observations, I've worked with 450 clients, and I say that to you because to say that I have a significant base to make this opinion. About half of my clients stay forever, and that means like 5, 6, 7 years. Another big portion of my clients stay for about 6 months, and my observations about that is sometimes because we're not a good fit, that happens. More often than not, though, what happens is they start coaching because they need a root canal, and it's bad. And it takes us 6 months to take care of the root canal, and now they're left with a toothache, and they can live with a toothache. So, meaning the big pressure of the big pain has gone away, and there's still a lot that could be done in that business to make that business better and to give that owner the life they want, but it's too uncomfortable to do those things.
Yeah. But like there's the thing underneath what we're saying here where it's like, do you have a goal that's big enough, a vision that's big enough? I do think goal is a little too small for the level of conversation. We have a why that's big enough for you to go and do all the things that we're like you like that's required, what it takes to go and get it. But underneath that is like you're given hints of like it's courageous. It's like it's not just work. It's not just long hours. It's not that. It's like there's a vulnerability involved in going for something larger than what you've been going through. And what I think I'm hearing from there is that like it's like there was something that was so unbearable that the first side of the pain was like I can work through this, but like at some point the trade-off no longer seemed to work, and they're like we'll just kind of hobble along with this as opposed to doing what it takes to continue going forward.
Yeah, it's a good way to.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, John. I'm going to be real with you as I go through. One of the things that has kept coming back to me in our conversation, because I actually think one of the spikiest points for me about you, John, is it's so matter of fact for you, but the thing is like this is what you want. What's it going to take to go get it? Who do you need to be? What needs to change in order to make that come to life? And are you willing to do that? Right?
Yeah.
There's something in there that feels radically different to me. It's a way in which I like to think as well. But I like it is not like when I go in other spaces, like that's not the default position. The default position is like, what can I do? Like what's available to me? Like they start at the beginning, whereas with you, it's like consistently start at the end, right? And then there's an element of it that I will say that I'm going through my courageous growth through right now. And
Right.
yeah, yeah, because sometimes what it takes is not what anyone else around you is doing, you know? And like, so for me, it ends up being a lot of times it ends up being volume. I'm the firstborn, volume, like just doing a lot
Right.
of, right? I'm the
Right.
firstborn in my family. Parents, yeah, came from Ghana. Like I'm used to like having to figure things out, you know? And eventually I realized I'm like, oh, I don't have anyone who can tell me how to get this done. So I probably have to
Mhm.
just do a whole lot of it. Like even here, I told you, like I'm experimenting with
Right.
this, you know, I'm like,
Yeah.
I have a lot of these calls to make this happen, you know? Um, but there's something in like with what you say that just like, it's the status quo. The status quo is we're going to look at whatever is required to make this happen, and we're just going to do what is required. I love if you can like
Yeah.
speak to that because you know, it's like I'm thinking about different examples in my own life, but there's a simplicity to that that like is not necessarily easy. In fact, a lot of times it's probably pretty hard to do what is required. And so I wonder if you can speak to that from your own experience, the client's experience. Like just let's just get into that real quick.
So I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's book, autobiography called Total Recall. It
Mhm.
made quite an impact on me. After he was Mr. Olympia, he decided that he wanted to go to Hollywood, and he happened to be being interviewed by the sports writer of a Tucson newspaper. And the sports writer said, "Well, okay, you've got the Mr. Olympia behind you. What's next?" And he said, Arnold said, "Well, I'm going to be the number one box office star in Hollywood." At the time, that was a laughable thought. I mean, his accent was so thick, and everybody sort of, you know, pegged him as this kind of muscleoid. And the sports writer said, "Well, how are you going to do that?" He says, "It's simple. I just create a vision of who I want to be, and then I just step into it until it's real." That's what you just described. And by the way, he also went on to become the governor. So apparently, this formula works pretty well.
Yeah.
The second thing I want to say about it is, the formula called be do have.
Yep, I'm familiar with it.
So be do have, and we often people start with a phrase that sounds like, "I want to have $1 million." And then they work from that point of view instead of saying, "Who must I be so I can do the thing, so I can have $1 million?" That starts from a different spot, which is really what's the mindset that's necessary. The third thing I'd say about it is when you set a goal in the way Arnold described it, the goal isn't negotiable. The only thing that's left to negotiate is how much effort it takes to get it. Are you willing to do what it takes to get it? The goal, once you set it, is not up for debate. It's not going to be compromised. So, okay, well, then let's just go after it. And then the fourth bit of, I guess, third or fourth bit of wisdom is Stephen Covey in Seven Habits had a wonderful way of saying is always start with the end in mind. Okay. It's hard. The analogy I like to use is just imagine some movie in Vietnam War, and a bunch of Marines or soldiers are dropped from a helicopter into a field with a lot of this big swaying kind of grass. And you don't know where you are, and you're wondering which direction should I go? How can you know? How would you know? I mean, any direction. So what has to happen? Well, you got to get up to about 10,000 feet, look at a horizon. Oh, that's where I want to go. Okay, good. Well, now you can put me back in the grass, and I know the direction I have to go in order to get there. So all of which is to say, if you just leave a guy in the swamp grass, they'll just stay stuck there because, like any decision, any direction seems like a good direction, and no direction seems like a good direction. So you have to have something that pulls you forward, whatever you call that, your vision, your why, your however you describe it. But the best practical example of that is Arnold's Mr. Olympia, number one box office star, and then to cap it off, I'll be the governor of California. That's a pretty good career, pretty good life.
Yeah, there's something in what you say here. And like I don't know if, like where the answer will lie. I think we should just like sit with it. But what's coming to me is what came first? Did the inspiration come first, or was it like the declaration of it? And maybe he talked about it, but like like yeah, there's something that I think through. And it's like just because you want it, and the word for me becomes, you said talk about like non-negotiable. For me, I often say, well, it's inevitable.
Right.
Like as
Yeah.
provided I do my work. Like I
Yeah.
can't promise when it's gonna come, but like this is happening. I just have to continue doing my thing, and it's already mine. I just have to
The,
do the work for it.
that's the question I've often asked myself is he
Mhm.
was clear that he made up his mind and he was just going to live his life and step into it. But what prompted him to make that a choice? Oh, let me be
Mhm.
the number one box office star.
Yeah.
How did you get that? Where did that come from? That's the thing I don't have a good answer. I'd like to know how he did that part.
Now I'm like, how do we get you into a conversation with Arnold so you can like ask him? Because like that's like I'm like, all right, how did that happen there? We had to like we had to get into some charities. Like what do we need to do? Make a good
You
enough
know,
donation to come in there? Like
I probably need to reread the book because it must be in there somewhere. It's just it doesn't. I don't remember what it was.
maybe, but one of the things I've been really enjoyed about our conversation today has been like the element of like where do the visions come from? Like I've been trying to get rid of like I don't mean this truly, but like there's been times where I'm like I really wish that I like wasn't listening to my soul's calling, and I
Mm,
didn't have to do Outlier's Edge. It's like it's put a strain on a lot of different things in my life. Like I look at my peers that I was like working in tech and consulting with, and like I looked just the other day, I'm like, oh, you're a partner now? Like
mm,
should like there's a lot of those things, but I'm like this is what I'm here to do. I can't
yeah.
not do this right here.
So I told you earlier, getting gray hair means you're more confident. But what I would say is most of the biggest mistakes I've made in life is when I did not pay attention to my intuition,
Mm,
which means that my intuition knew what was the right thing to do, but I often avoided or didn't do it because it was uncomfortable or would cause me to do something, to need to do something I didn't want to do. And what I've come to learn is if you didn't pay attention to your intuition at 6 weeks, it's not going to be better at 6 months and it won't be better at 6 years. In fact, the only trajectory that goes is downwards. And so, what I've learned to do is I can't always tell you why my intuition is saying that, but when it does, just act on it. It's the best guide, uh, compass that I have about what you should say yes to.
love it, love it. Well, John, I think we're at a good place for today's conversation. I'm like there was I didn't know what to expect, and I'm glad that we let things evolve in the way that they did. It's funny you talk about the intuition. Like I know that I need to keep creating space for intensity and to have conversations that legitimately light me up. Like if we're having
Mm,
anything less than that, I came in, so you don't know this. I came in and I was like, if John's not ready to play, like we're not having a conversation,
sure.
but it took me a while to get to that point. You talk about like talking
Mm,
with AI, like I'm like that was my being work. That was the cap of me as an entrepreneur. That was my like intuitive work where it's like, okay, can I show up like in a line? Can I be honest with myself with it? And it's funny because the more I got honest with it, the more excited I became for the
exactly.
conversation itself. It was really
Exactly.
counterintuitive. Like
That's right.
but I was like, we're gonna have a fun time if you're down to play this way, But this is
Sure.
the game we're playing, and it evolved into what like this wonderful conversation. I'm glad we decided to play. Uh, John, I'm gonna have us wrap up with three things. The
Okay.
first thing is that I want to, for any outlier who's listening to this that would like to go deeper down the journey with you, what's the best way for them to move forward with you or to go deeper with you?
I'm easy to find W5 coaching. Let me give you a way to remember W5. We kind of touched on it earlier, but the core of coaching is the Socratic method, and that means helping somebody figure it out for themselves. And that usually means asking a bunch of good questions. And the five core questions start with a W: who, what, when, where, why. So W5 coaching. Although, by the way, it's also the standard of journalists. Journalists are held to the standard of every good story answers the five questions: who, what, when, or why.
There's a simplicity to that I love. Like it ain't complicated, right? It's like we can all ask these questions. We've been asking it. Like I have a 3-year-old, so I get a lot of why questions.
Sure, of course. Well, that's a
Yeah,
stage of life where you're trying to figure that stuff out.
yeah. All right, great. So W5 coaching allies. Is there anything else you want to say on that?
No, that's
Okay.
thank you for
Um,
the opportunity.
yeah, now there's two other questions I'm gonna ask. So the I'm gonna end it here with what I'm gonna call an outsight and an insight. Right? And we'll see how we play the outsight. And but for right now, I'm gonna give you a chance. Like if you were something you want to say to any outlier who's listening to this right now, what's the outsight? What's the message that you would want them to leave with?
Well, for me, is trust your intuition.
Mhm.
So a lot of people think of themselves as rational and logical and driven by logic, but I think those people are fooling themselves because we are emotional beings wrapped in a skin of logic. The emotional part of our brain developed well before the prefrontal cortex. So, which is to say, your intuition is probably a better guide of what's true for you than most people. Although I can tell you, a few of my brothers would have a debate with me about the concept that you can have your truth and my truth, and that there isn't an absolute standard of what truth is. But that's maybe for another day.
I love that. Um, Thank you, John. And we're going to end here. We're going to end here with your insight, right?
Mm,
So this to me, I think is like the most important question of everything that I ask. Yeah, that comes here because no matter how we shape the conversation, I refuse to be in a conversation where we're not growing. You know,
mm,
and
yeah,
it's okay if no growth took place. But generally speaking, when I talk to people, like the conversation we're having is as much for the audience, for me, and for themselves as it is, right? And so I'm
yeah.
curious, what's an insight that you are leaving this conversation with as we wrap for today?
Mm. You know, I'll be honest with you, it'll probably occur to me in an hour or 3 or 5.
Mhm.
As you go for a walk and then you contemplate these things, and so that may be disappointing to the audience, but that's how it works for me.
I don't think I'm not even concerned about that in the least, right? Because what I hear is you knowing you, one, two, you leaving space for it to continue to work on it, and then three, like I told you right before we came on here, I was like, we're gonna record, but like, there's no, I don't want to perform. This is not about
Right.
being in performance mode, right? This is about
Yeah.
like actually being here in conversation, and so yeah, there's no nice like life doesn't work on our timelines, you know,
Yeah.
like,
You
but I know the
know,
insight will be inevitable. So I'm good with that as well.
I have a marketing colleague, and she calls herself a plotter, which means she needs a map, step one, step two, step three, step four. And she refers to me as a pantster. I fly by the seat of my pants.
There we
And
go.
that's a very good description for both of us. And sometimes that causes a bit of conflict and tension, but almost always produces a better outcome as a result of our respective lens on how things should be done.
There we go. Talking now, we're talking about perspectives again, once again. Well, John, thank you very much for the conversation. Wishing you all the best here. I may like, I think I'm gonna like leave here with like, I hope that inspiration and curiosity continues to just like come into your way, however it is, but stay happy in the meantime and actually through it as well.
Thanks a
All right.
lot. Hope that's
All right.
true. Thanks for your time. I appreciated our conversation.